calling this meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Need a roll call? We're going to proceed with the nomination of to fill the vacancy of Mark Giroux. To fill the vacancies.
No, we're doing the member. We're doing the new board member first, aren't we?
For the new board members.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Now, we have 3 candidates.
Yeah,
There's
a lot of feedback.
You got to speak into the microphones. I can't turn it up too high.
Okay.
There you go.
We have 3 candidates. At this point, every board member knows who they are. Do we have a motion to put on the floor for the nomination?
I'd like to nominate Teresa Kroll.
Okay, we have Teresa Kroll. Any other nominations? Okay, if there's no other nomination, we need a motion to close the nominations.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Let's take a vote to close the nomination right now. All in favor to close the nomination, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Now we have a candidate. Let's take a vote to approve the nomination, the motion. All in favor for Teresa Kroll to fill the vacancy, say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Is Teresa Kroll here? Would you please? I don't know if we usually it's a congratulations. I hope you accept that. We're gonna, yes, we have to administer the oath.
I, Teresa Kroll,
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support, and defend the Constitution of the United States
of America
and
the Constitution of the Commonwealth,
the Constitution of the Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
It's official? It's official. Well, congratulations.
All right.
The board now will proceed to nominate for the nomination of the president of the board. We had a vacancy for a while, unfortunately. First, we have to nominate for a temporary president.
I nominate Luigi.
Any other nominations?
I nominate George Joseph.
I can't do it. No.
You can't?
It's got to be.
I
a
rescind
vote.
that.
I see.
I'll move the nomination
Okay.
to close.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor to close the nomination, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Well, then I just sit over here. Well, now we proceed to nominate the permanent presidents. Now, before I do that, I have to understand that in case that I am nominated, I have to resign my position before the vote.
Not before,
Whoa. Yeah. Oh.
not before the vote. If you are nominated and elected to the vacancy in the
Okay,
president, you would hold two positions then, and by policy, you're not permitted to do that, so you would have to resign one.
And then we have to nominate somebody for vice president.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have a nomination for president of the board?
I'd like to nominate Tim Brown.
Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Luigi.
Any others? Okay, if there's no additional nominations, we need a motion to close the nomination.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Well, then I guess we have two nominations. We have to proceed to vote for the candidates. Let's start with Tim Brown. He was the first choice. Let's have a roll call for Tim Brown for president.
Is that how it works?
I thought, no.
What I would recommend is that you have a roll call for the board to choose between Mr. Brown and Mr. DeFrancesco. And at the conclusion of that vote, since there's two candidates, unless it's a 4-4 tie, you're going to have a president at that point.
Okay, so let's have a roll call.
Mr. Brooks?
Tim Brown.
Mr. Brown?
Tim Brown.
Mrs. Davis?
Tim Brown.
Mr. DeFrancesco?
The Francesca.
Mr. Gulick?
Mr. Brown.
Mr. Johnston?
Mr. DeFrancesco.
Mr. Lynch?
Mr. DeFrancesco.
Mr. Valesky?
Mr. DeFrancesco.
Mrs. Kroll?
Mr. DeFrancesco.
What we got?
Give
5-4
for yourself.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and we proceed with the
Ladies and
with the
gentlemen.
agenda.
Mr. DeFrancesco, I'll remind you, since
Oh, yes.
you were
One-
elected to serve the remaining term as
One-
president, you need to choose whether you accept that position or resign the vice president position, and that would create a vacancy in that
Right.
position.
At this time, I'd like to resign from my position as vice president. And that don't require any votes, will it?
No.
Okay. Which means we have an opening for, to fill, which is the vice presidency. And at this time, we can take a nomination for the vice presidency. Any nominations?
Tim Brown.
Any additional nominations? If you no additional nominations, let's have a motion to close the nomination.
Second.
Very good. Now let's have a motion to appoint Tim Brown as vice president.
Second.
All in favor for Tim Brown to be vice president?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Besides, Tim Brown, you did a good job when there was no president or vice president on board. And appreciate that.
All right.
Okay, now we have the full office of the board. There's one addition, one open vacancy left by George Martin Giro. That's the opening for the Career Center. He used to be a member of the Career Center, and this all left.
Yeah.
Should we do that now?
We can do that now, or we can do it at the end of the meeting, but it will need to be done, because we do have that vacancy.
Yes, okay, we can do it at the end of the meeting then.
Table is
All right.
that,
All right, very good. So we can proceed with the agenda. Roll call first, by the way. We need a roll call.
Mr. Brooks?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mr. DeFrancesco?
Here.
Mrs. Strong?
Present.
Mr. Gulick?
Here.
Mr. Johnston?
Here.
Mr. Lynch?
Here.
Mr. Valesky?
We have the approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Has been moved in second. Any questions? Okay, that's all in favor to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, now we have the presentations, I
We
guess.
have number 4, public address, PAA, representative. We have PAEA representative, number 4.
Okay.
She sent an audio.
Is there PAA?
She sent me an audio, like she usually does, so I'm just going to try and play it here. So this is PAE representative.
My name is Melissa Statman, and I am president of the PENNCREST Area Education Association. In just a few weeks, we will be opening our doors to students again during a pandemic, with a virus variant that is tearing through our nation and infecting more young people than ever before. And instead of serious discussion about how we are going to keep everyone safe enough to have 5-day-a-week in-person instruction, some politicians on the school board are in a dither trying to divide our community over something that we do not teach, have never taught, and would never teach in the way that some members of the board are trying to insinuate. We do our jobs as professionals and would like to see the same professionalism from our school board. The most divisive thing in this district is the culture war issues that the politicians on our board keep injecting into the community. We strive for collegiality in our classrooms, students working to learn, grow, and understand both the material and each other's experiences.
That's it. That's not like the same thing that she said this thing. All right, now it's the turn of the registered citizen comments. The first on the list is Linda Maillard, the Nango resident. Linda. Is Linda Maillard in? Okay. Next one is Dan Haley, Cambridge Springs resident.
Mr. Chairman, board members, now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country. At the dawning of the American dream, Thomas Paine said in his American Crisis that these are times that try men's souls. This statement, made centuries ago at the cusp of the American Revolution, is no less true today. We find ourselves now at the cusp of a social revolution, one of ideologies, of worldviews colliding. Education in America is under attack. Radical proponents of critical race theory prescribe a revolutionary program that defames the Declaration and seeks to destroy the structure of our Constitution. This assault is at our doorsteps. Statements by our teachers, the NEA, and the PSEA president confirm that the threat is real, and it is here now. We are under attack. The tenets of CRT are pure identity-based Marxism, designed to pit one class against another. These influencers promote hatred, shame, discord, and racial conflict. At its core, it is Marxist conflict theory, replacing bourgeois and proletariat with white oppressors and black oppressed. This hateful racist theory seeks to destroy the fabric of our society and tear Americans apart and cannot be tolerated. Tonight, as we pledged allegiance to the flag, together we stated, "We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." One nation. Communist race theory is the antithesis to everything our country stands for. Dr. King said that he had a dream that his 4 children would one day live in a nation where they would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. CRT is directly opposed to the central concepts that King stood for. Barack Obama said, "There is not a liberal America and a conservative America. There is not a black America, a white America, Latino and Asian America, but there is the United States of America." But the leftist Marxists are at work, making disciples in the schools of America. Lenin said, "Give me your children for 4 years, and the seeds I will plant will never be uprooted." And Lincoln said, "The philosophy of the schoolhouse in one generation becomes the philosophy of the government in the next." Ronald Reagan said that freedom is never more than one generation from extinction. We don't pass it to our children through the bloodstream. It must be protected, fought for, and handed on to them to do the same. CRT must be banned here in PENNCREST. We must educate, not indoctrinate. We must stand together. We must stand strong against tyranny. Burke said the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is that good men do nothing. Now is the time to stand against this evil doctrine of racial division. I call on you, the brave men and women on this board, to come together and take a stand. As Pennsylvanians, we have always been first to stand against tyranny. It was from our own state house that patriots stood against tyranny in 1776. In 1787, we stood here again in Pennsylvania to form the government of this great land. Many battles have been fought here and much patriotic blood has been shed, standing up for what is right and true. In 1863, it was here in Pennsylvania that Pennsylvanians stood at Gettysburg at the angle and pushed back the forces of slavery and stood the line, forming the high watermark of the Confederacy. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, please stand the line again. As Pennsylvanians, as Americans, stand together as today's patriots and heroes. Stand for our children. Stand for the taxpayers. Stand as Americans. And vote for a policy to ban critical race theory at PENNCREST. Thank you. Several hundred taxpayers and students that call for you to implement a policy to ban critical race theory.
Lori Shields.
Hello. He's quoting all these people from many centuries ago all over the world. I'm just talking about local issues tonight. I have believed for a while, since I found out the board members aren't required to have background clearances, the board members need background clearances. From the Pennsylvania School Board Association says, You have no record for felony or misdemeanor involving dishonesty. Well, how can you tell if you don't have clearances? How can you tell anything if you don't have any record, if you don't have clearances? This issue's been on my mind for a while, and I was really surprised to find out that school board members aren't required to have criminal background, child abuse clearances, FBI fingerprinted, like every other staff member or volunteer that walks into a PENNCREST school. We had a member prior that had some issues with some judgments against them. And that person was endorsed by members of this school board and was put on this school board only to have another judgment filed against that person. And then he was finally pushed off. So that wasn't accountability. Nobody asked him to resign. So I would like to ask every school board member that's sitting here tonight, examine your intentions, please. Examine your intentions why you're sitting on this board. It's a thankless job at times, I know. But it seems like that members are buying into what seems like the flavor of the week. And I've heard yelling and chaos and unreasonableness and name calling. It's pretty unacceptable to me for a district that I love for so long. There's even been outside groups listed by the Southern Poverty Law Center as hate groups came into our district and brought chaos to our local meeting. And I don't know if this was encouraged or possibly even invited by a local school board member. We are being infiltrated by outside groups. That doesn't sound too good. I've actually heard other school board members from other districts say they wouldn't sit on the PENNCREST school board because of all the discourse that's going on here. So congratulations. Like I said, what's your intentions for being on this board? Public schools have to educate everyone. Okay? School board members have a responsibility to the taxpayers, but predominantly to the students. There's plenty of challenges. Trauma-informed schools is very important here. Kids come to this school that don't feel loved, come from horrible, broken homes with neglect and abuse, mental health issues, homelessness. I wouldn't even be surprised if there's some homeless kids. And you're worried about all this other stuff that's not even happening in the school district. Okay? Schools have to worry about tight schedules and truancy due to illness, testing, keeping current with state regulations, homeschoolers that get behind and have to come back and take our testing, and we're responsible. Those test scores are for us. Transportation, money is always an issue, I know. So, now, some of our kids are being attacked by our own school board members too. We are a community here. I worked in the schools for 36 years. We are a community. And to let outside influences infiltrate us just isn't right. We need to know the true needs of what our students have. And in the policy, I see accountability regulations for school board members. There's policy manual, section 000 in the local school board procedures. I believe revisions are in order.
Time's over, please.
I'm sorry, I'm going on. Drag me out.
Time off.
You need to require
Rules are in
school
place
board
for a
members
reason.
to have understanding and function, not encourage.
We gotta treat everybody equally. I like you, but
Everybody
you
gets
have to
5
quit.
minutes. That's the rules.
don't push me.
You don't want to.
I want another minute. You
No.
don't take it out of my heart.
No, we have
You
time.
need to be
We
in
have-
compliance with there is a
These-
citizens regulation.
These are our policies. You get 5 minutes. That's it.
You are
Okay.
leaving now.
Nope.
Can I sign up for next time?
I can sign up for every time.
Good, I will sign up, thank you.
Good. See you next time.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said. Don't let it infiltrate us.
All right. Next one is Weingarten.
Ryan Weingarten, thank you. Matthew 6:24 says that no one can serve two masters, for either he will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak this evening. Jesus Christ teaches us there is no neutrality. You cannot serve two masters. While this verse in its context is talking about money, the principle stands that if you serve God, then serve God. 70% of children raised in Christian households leave the Christian church by the end of their freshman year in college. That is obviously due to the education that Christians choose to put their children into. It's a church for a different religion, and it's called secular humanism. What is before you this evening are just two aspects of this religion, and you're only really focusing on one. The main one is CRT, critical race theory. Don't forget what opened these floodgates, a book display at the Maplewood High School Library. Critical gender theory is also still before us. I will keep my remarks constrained to the CRT this evening, though, mainly. I would first like to say that I was encouraged at the work session that I saw on Monday to hear nearly every member of this board vocally support their opposition to critical race theory. I would encourage you to follow through and make a firm stand against this agenda that is being promoted by the NEA, the National Teachers Union, that is, according to their own website, bringing Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ2SIA+ agenda and illegal immigrants into the schools. I appreciate the difficult position you find yourselves in, and I recognize that you are all under immense pressure. We are seeing the fabric of our community being tested. I pray that the wolf and the weave hold together, that you are strengthened and encouraged in your lives and in your resolve as you make these decisions. I also heard from two teachers on Monday night, both of whom expressed a sentiment that they were dedicated to the welfare and education of the students in their classrooms. I thank them for their dedication. I do not doubt their sincerity. I appreciate the hard work, the difficult job that our educators perform within our school district, and we owe them our gratitude. I also believe the teacher indicated that neither she nor anyone she knows is teaching this theory, and asked this board to trust that no one would teach it. That's where a biblical worldview reveals to us a little bit about mankind. You don't need the Bible for this. It's easy to observe that humans will often do the wrong thing, make a poor decision. Biblical law and American law recognize this, and then we set up laws that are intended to discourage bad behaviors. We have laws in our books that make murder illegal. I could tell you that I don't murder. And I could ask you to trust me when I say that no one in this room will murder people. Does that mean that we should not legislate against murder? Obviously not. I cannot guarantee that no one in this room will avoid murder. The Bible teaches that man's heart is deceptive, and we do not even know our own hearts. Murder is within the reach of each one of us. So is the teaching of CRT. Policy should be made against this. Second concern was voiced by Mrs. Davis, that if we draft a policy, it could be revised or removed in the future. I'd like to point out and say that's true about any law. For instance, our nation has legislated away the religious and speech protections of the First Amendment. Does that mean we should never have adopted it? I have reviewed the drafted policy that's before you tonight. I recognize its value, and I congratulate you on a good start. I encourage you to work with this policy a little bit. First of all, your use of the word sex is going to be steamrolled by those who prefer to the postmodern category of gender. Are you aware that there are now 63 or perhaps even 81 different genders being identified by these postmodernists? Your policy ignores intersectionality. Both gender theory and race theory use intersectionality to underpin their propaganda. According to Sandy Heath, a PhD candidate in the Parks, Recreation, and Tourist Management Department at Clemson University, and I quote, "I don't think you can talk about experiences concerning a person's identity without discussing intersectionality. LGBTQ2SIA+, or queer identity in itself, can have multiple intersections of identity."
30
I think
seconds.
what Crenshaw and other scholars and activists communicated to the world was how people experience a fabric of social barriers that shape opportunities and decisions. These opportunities and decisions impact how people move through the world, end quote. A Christian worldview maintains that God sets up the paths of our lives for His glory and to the glory of those who love Him. We are commanded to love our neighbor and love our enemies because they bear God's image. They are humans, not animals. I encourage this board to begin restoring our education system policies and encourage you to treat each other with respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Amber Tyson Wright from Centerville.
Good evening. As an educator, I remember not too long ago when the word proactive was the hot educational buzzword, meaning acting in anticipation of future problems, needs, or changes. At present, when parents and community members are proactive and request a policy to ban CRT from this board, which we have established as an imminent threat to our children, we are labeled flat earth theorists, radical activists, and just plain ignorant by a few of our history teachers. The history teachers have never been a target in this debate. Not one speaker has mentioned them as having an intent on indoctrinating our children when this issue arose. Because they are the NEA, as they put it, they must direct the narrative to themselves, accusing us of censorship and mistrust, all the while equating CRT with critical thinking, as if we don't know better. They are putting themselves in a precarious situation here by pitting themselves unnecessarily against the parents of the children they teach. Shame on them and the board member who decided to give us a lecture on how we are wasting his time with what he deems as our trivial concerns. The fact that large numbers of parents and community members who have never stepped foot in a board meeting are being proactive by preparing research and even giving speeches to appeal to this board on the subjects of social agenda books containing pornographic language, the mask mandates, and CRT, all of which we find to be important topics, demonstrate our commitment to our children and should be taken seriously. The late Randy Posh quotes in the last lecture, "One thing that makes it possible to be an optimist is if you have a contingency plan for when all hell breaks loose. There are a lot of things I don't worry about because I have a plan in place if they do," end quote. This is simply what we are asking for, to be proactive against what we have all agreed upon as being negative indoctrination of our children. We thank you, Ms. Davis, for indicating your willingness to sign on to the CRT ban, despite thinking it won't change anything. I have read the proposed policy and is what I would deem sufficiently proactive. Ms. Davis, it will change enough. Change at a local level as citizens band together and continue to speak. Together, we will defend CRT. First in PENNCREST, then in PA, and finally in America. When men, women of all races, colors, and creeds answer the call and stand shoulder to shoulder against this Marxist ideology that seeks to divide our society. Just last weekend, I ran into a sweet friend. She loves everyone type of friend who graduated from Sagertown High School and recently graduated from Edinburgh University, which indoctrinates students with CRT. She was targeted by a person of color because she was white. And it was even worse because the person of color said she was really white. A plan to organize an attack on her failed because my friend had already established several relationships with the people of color that were being enlisted by this CRT disciple. Is that the kind of fires that we want to start in our district? I once again ask you to please be proactive and put this tool, this policy, in place. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Geneseo Bruno from East Mead.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Geneseo Bruno. I live in East Mead Township. I attended the first school board meeting I'd ever been to this past Monday. I listened to the speakers, did some additional research, and had a few things I wanted to say. First of all, I have a simple message. I think for the sake of the students, this board needs to come together, regardless of personality conflicts, political affiliation, and address a few very important issues and move on. These issues detract from what we should be concerned about, but I'll get to that in a minute. Take CRT as an example. Heard a lot about that already again this evening. In Crawford County, the U.S. Census states Black or African American population accounts for 2% of the total population. Those classified as white alone is 95.8%. I mention those numbers because it seems like we're getting caught up in debate over an issue that wouldn't ordinarily present itself to our district if it weren't for such polarized times we live in, so politically charged and racially sensitive. I heard a statement read by one board member the other night that seems to be a workable statement, but it seems there was some confusion about it being redundant of a previous statement and possibly a duplication to a certain extent of another board member's statement, and in the end it appeared it was just dropped out of frustration, but I'm not sure what really happened. I heard another board member say that it really didn't matter if we had a policy because no one follows them anyway. I don't find that acceptable. Policy creates accountability. I didn't request to be a speaker 2 days before Monday's meeting, and therefore I wasn't allowed to speak. I followed the policy. I didn't stand up in the audience and try to speak. That's what policies are made for. Without a policy that directly addresses a specific situation, you're leaving an open avenue for experiment, and someone eventually will take you to task. I also believe I heard that possibly the solicitor felt that the board may be in error in setting forth a policy that could be challenged later or was already addressed in another policy. To that I say, so what? You have to address the bully in the room. I say this with all due respect. Then the solicitor should bring us back a policy or edit the policy to prevent that from happening and present it to the board. Ultimately, the decision rests with the board, but it seems the solicitor should offer alternatives and not dismiss the objective. I apologize if that has been done, and I'm not privy to that information. Finally, the elephant in the room is the book display that was at Maplewood High School Library. You're never going to resolve conflict or opinions for those who are proponents of LGBTQ and those who don't accept LGBTQ. That doesn't really seem like it should be a function or a purpose of the board anyway. But that's not what this is about to me. This is about a book that was displayed that in my interpretation not only violates Pennsylvania but also federal law. That book is entitled Beyond Magenta, and I can't read what I prepared tonight that it explicitly states because I researched it, and I think we have a couple people in the audience that are under 16 years old. But according to the Justice Department, under federal law strictly prohibits the distribution of obscene matter to minors. Believe me when I tell you what was in that book, and you can laugh, and I have the statement. If anybody here would like to approach me and read it, it was obscene by anyone's standard. And I know LGBTQ people. I have customers where I work, and I have a friend who I graduated from Maplewood High School with back in 1982. And they also think those statements are ridiculous and have no place in our school. I would ask that you take a serious look at that and revisit it, and there needs to be some type of process in place to review the material that is being placed for our children to see. I mentioned in the beginning these issues detract from what we should be talking about, so let's get off that unpleasant stuff for a moment. Our district is shrinking, declining enrollment, increasing expenses, increasing taxes, adding positions. Where does it end? And I would ask you this, and not only for our district, how long can this model survive today? There's school boards, there's districts all over the nation going through this. I don't hear a whole lot about school districts having a budget surplus. If you look at the last 20 years, as I've done, We're on track to reach the end of that time in a much shorter time period than it took us to get there. And what happens with all the conflict going on with some parents just decide to say, you know what, I'm pulling the kid out of the district. So take a look at what we're doing and what we need to resolve, and let's take a look at the issues at hand and make a policy. Thank you.
Lisa Chaucey. Pretty close.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, good evening. My name is Lisa Chaucey. I graduated from Maplewood. I have had a son and a daughter, both graduate from Maplewood, and my youngest will be a 5th grader this year. I attended my first board meeting on Monday. I was here to support Ms. Dutton as she addressed the board on unmasking our children for the next school year. For many years, PENNCREST has gotten my tax dollars. However, last year, PA Cyber got that in tuition monies. Unfortunately, the governor's mandates of masks and his state of emergency constituted a very hard decision for my husband and me. We wanted consistent, live instruction for our daughter without having a mask each day. And PENNCREST Cyber was still in its infancy. My wish is that the board will continue to grow and support this alternative to the brick and mortar school with live instructors. Because as I see it, if you mandate masks in our schools again or choose a hybrid schedule, you will see a lot of monies being paid out in tuition. Our children deserve to be in school with their friends, their teachers, and the support staff. The state of emergency has ended. It is now my choice to mask my child. We will keep hope in Maplewood until we feel it is no longer in her best interest. On Monday, if I may, Mr. Chairman, a few of your board members made some pretty flippant remarks regarding our presence here. One of them stated we were wasting the board's time and we should just let it go. Let me gently remind you that your position up there, we elected you to those seats. Your position on that stage does not entitle you to arrogance, nor does it give you the right to be condescending to those who are here with legitimate concerns. Your job is to listen to our concerns, address them with intelligent and thoughtful responses, and make informed decisions. We deserve your time, attention, and respect, and you deserve ours. We will let it go when we are satisfied you are actually listening to us. You can sit up there all you want and give lip service that CRT is a non-issue, but I highly doubt it is in the curriculum. We won't be able to look in the textbook and see reference to critical race theory. However, that does not mean it won't unofficially be taught in the classroom. When push comes to shove and the NEA pushes, are you going to tell them to shove it? The board says no one is for CRT, but I did not see any movement to make a motion to put the statement that Mr. Brooks read on the agenda. Even Mr. Brooks himself basically didn't care one way or the other. Apparently, your words did not instill confidence that this was a non-issue. Furthermore, we want accountability. From the presentations on Monday, I get the feeling that the teachers and the teachers union do not like the verbiage in the policy regarding consequences. A comment was also made that we, the parents, are dumping this issue on the laps of our children. I would appreciate a little clarification on that statement made by Mrs. Davis. We are putting this in your laps as the school board. We want to make sure it does not show up in the classroom regardless of what the NEA wants. This may not have been on the radar of our small community, but I thank Mr. Johnson for putting it there. The extreme leftist agenda is sweeping across our nation with fury. We are getting closer and closer to losing the freedoms of our country. You know what, let's not get woke, but let's wake up, okay? This is the time, and it starts now here at the local level. The only way that we can hold the teachers, the board, and the superintendent is through accountability, and that is through policy. I appreciate the undertaking that consumes, the time that it consumes. I sit as vice chair on a local board of a multi-million-dollar company myself. Policy protects. Lastly, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, I think you may find it pertinent for you and your board members to review Robert's Rules of Order. I was disappointed in the way that you acted and interacted with one another. You're elected public servants. I don't expect agreement on every level. A good board has diversity, but it should not have controversy. How do you effectively do your job up there with such animosity and discord among you? In the words of Mr. Brooks himself, we can do better. Thank you.
Chris Cornell from Centerville.
Good evening, friends. I'm going to ad-lib a little bit here. This is not my forte, but I deeply love our country and our children, and we must do better. We have to start and show some kindness and respect. We must teach that to our children. Now I'll read my speech. I won't take up much of your time this evening because so many people have brought so wonderful points, and I'm a very simple person with a simple message. I've been thinking about CRT, and I'm going to represent the human side of it. I'm not going to discuss the philosophy behind it, nor address its ulterior motives. I will leave that discussion to our wonderful speakers this evening. Let's examine CRT. Critical means to examine or critique something. So in simple terms, to analyze our race. Let's not pit one race against another. Let's unite our beloved country, not divide it. We're all Americans, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have a simple suggestion. Can we once again embrace kindness and respect? Listen to each other with differing points of view. It breaks my heart that our society is so angry. We have to respect each other and come together. We need to apply the golden rule once again. We need to treat each other as we wish to be treated. This simple rule would go a long way in uniting our country. CRT, in my opinion, pits one race against another. We need unity in our country, not division. We have fought several wars, lost thousands of Americans so that we could enjoy freedom. Young Americans of all races have fought side by side to ensure our precious freedom. This nation is not racist. If we were, how did we elect a black president and then re-elect him? Our NFL and NBA are 80 to 85% black, and we celebrate and love our sports. I know we have some dark, dark times in our history, but we have made great strides to improve our thoughts. Thousands worldwide, even today, are risking their lives to come to our great country. Why? To enjoy our freedoms. If we respect each other and treat all humanity with kindness, we would not be discussing CRT. Can the teachers and school board members champion that idea of kindness to each other? Our math scores nationwide are plummeting. The United States ranks 27th in the world in math scores. Pennsylvania has a 15 to 20% illiteracy rate. And PENNCREST graduating seniors can neither write nor read cursive writing, nor can they fill out a personal check. We need to get back to the basics, the old-fashioned basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic. These basics are absolutely critical fundamentals that will help our children succeed in life. Each student that attends PENNCREST school should be treated with kindness and respect, and I'm glad you're addressing bullying. Can you board members lead the way by treating each other with kindness and respect as well? My heart was grieved at the end of the July meeting when each of you had an opportunity for personal comments. I watched as the school board members bullied, or at the very least, disrespected other members of the board. Your actions belied your words. Is that a good example for the students who were sitting here in the audience? This should be an atmosphere of respectful discussions. Can we please all work together on being unified and determined to love all of our students and give them a better education?
Eli Skelton.
Hello, I'm Eli Skelton. I'm on the board of Trans Family of Northwest PA and a Pennsylvania Youth Congress advocate for Northwest PA. Those of you that actually cared about the students before CRT, you may remember me. I'm the activist who wants accountability and diversity training for all board members, school employees, and students. At the board work session, divisiveness was brought up multiple times by registered citizens and board members. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the divisiveness that has been happening in our community for generations. I was raised in a conservative Christian household. My mother was very active with teaching children about God. She was the release time teacher at Casuago Elementary School for 7 years, and when that school closed, she was the release time teacher at Cambridge Springs Elementary School for 10 years. She was a Cambridge Springs Vacation Bible School teacher and director for more years than we can count, and she helped with Camp Venango for Jesus for 5 years. Why did she stop, you may ask? She educated herself with many books and websites, most of them religious, and learned that being gay, transgender, etc. is not a sin in God's eyes. What does this have to do with divisiveness and bullying? When she made it known that she is an LGBT ally, the religious community no longer wanted my mom teaching the Bible to children. She wasn't allowed to help with Camp Venango for Jesus because in order to volunteer, you must sign a form stating that you believe marriage is only for a man and a woman. She stepped down from release time when she brought up the issue with Camp Venango, and the majority of the board, some of them in our audience, agreed that she was wrong. She transferred directorship of Vacation Bible School to another mom because she knew she would be kicked out of that position soon as well. My mom lost almost all of her friends just because she educated herself and now believes something different from them. I attended Camp Venango that year solely to tell the kids that she taught for years why she wasn't there. I told all of them the hard truth, and they all thought that that was unfair and she should still be allowed to help teach. Many of those kids are the same kids who bullied me for being raped and bullied me for being transgender. Things that they learned to do from their parents. The point is that CRT is not the only topic dividing our community. Now, some of the board is offended that I want all of them to go through diversity training. Some of them suggesting that other board members may need it, but not them. However, all of you have to go through mandated reporter training every 5 years, not just the ones who need it. Diversity training isn't only about LGBT issues. It's about race, color, ethnicity, nationality, sexual orientation, religion, gender, socioeconomic status, age, physical and mental ability. I looked through my Cambridge Springs yearbooks today, not including API, Hispanic, and Latinx. Through 12 grade levels, I counted 20 people of color. A lot of the grade levels didn't even have a person of color. My friends from Sagertown say that it's the same story there. I had 2 people of color in my grade. One moved here in 3rd grade. The other moved away in high school. How can you tell me that you don't need diversity training when you're an all-white board full of testosterone and the immigrant is very vocal they hate the country they emigrated from? Heck, the member with a grandchild who is a person of color is the person who brought up CRT. Can we please focus on an issue that is actually happening right now with board members, school staff, and students? I have a challenge for all of you. The next time you're at a social gathering, such as church or sports, look around you. Do you see any people of color? Any differently abled or neurodiverse? Any immigrants? Any Jews? anyone from the LGBT community, you'll see just how undiverse our community truly is. Once again, I'm calling for accountability and diversity training for all board members, school employees, and students. Thank you for your time.
Brenda Bevelov Barrett. Brenda. Is Brenda Belover right? Thank you.
I can feel the hecklers already. My sympathies to those who have been bullied. My sympathies to those who haven't learned to pull up themselves by their bootstraps. My sympathies, indeed. My sympathies to myself, but my congratulations to myself for not letting someone, when I was a child, tell me that I should be something else than what I turned out to be. God is good. God is good. We all were created by God. We are one race. One race. Scientists have proved that we can all be linked to one common female ancestor. Does it strike you odd that they can't find a common male ancestor? Do you know why? Because that female ancestor came from him, from her husband, the one who God made, our beginning. We are all descendants of Adam and Eve. Now, and we're not white and black and whatnot, but we are all, this is white, guys. No, that's not white, that's yellow. We are all shades of brown. Your hair is white. It didn't start out that way, I bet. Okay? We are all colored people. We are one race. We need to remember that. We need to remember that when we see our black sister and our red brother, anybody. We need to help people through their pains. I should be, by standards today, I should not even be a white hetero female, a hetero female. I should be about as lesbian as anybody because of abuse. Because I had a lousy relationship with my mother. Because teenage boys aren't necessarily told how to treat a lady. And teenage boys are all about themselves. That can make you turn. And with the right counseling, I probably wouldn't be here talking about anything other than maybe other subjects. We are one race. We are Americans. We should be thanking God we were born in this country. We need to start acting like Americans. Nobody runs to Russia unless they got a screw loose. I'm sorry, it's true. Nobody runs to Cuba. Everybody knocks on our doors. They all want to come to America. They all want to come to America. You wanted to come to America. We all would want to come to America. This is where we belong. And others know it and they hate it. You know, and once we're gone, they're gonna wipe out each other if that happens, if they get that far. In Russia or any other communist country, Marxist country.
30 seconds.
I love you all. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. God will lead you to do the right thing. How's that?
Thank you. Carla Brown.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? I want to talk about education, but with a 5-minute constraint discussing policy I thought was more important. The best school policies serve as a guide for acceptable behavior in a safe, conducive learning environment. They should be as short and direct as possible, use plain language, and not overlap each other. They should not assume the worst, and they should only limit an aspect of education as a last resort. I would like to point out some overlooked facts within our district. First, I would like to start with the new policy that you're going to be looking at later, 105.4, labeled divisive material. PENNCREST board policy states, 000 by the way, states board policies and procedures are not intended and shall not be construed to supersede or preempt any applicable law, whether constitutional, statutory, regulatory, or common law. Consequently, all board policies and procedures shall be given both an interpretation and application that is lawful. The definition of preempt is to take action in order to prevent an anticipated event from happening. If the current board-approved curriculum containing no divisive material, and there is no overwhelming evidence that our teachers are not following the curriculum, this policy is redundant and offensive, especially when you combine it with other board policies that are already in place, like Board Policy 11, which states in one part that the school board should respect that the superintendent of schools and his or her staff are responsible and accountable for the delivery of the educational programs and the conduct of school operations. I would also like to point out that policies 102, 105, and 119 were specifically mentioned in the revised version of 105.4. If you were mentioning 3 current policies in a policy you're trying to create, perhaps it's not as necessary as you thought it was. I would like to share some more thoughts about policies that I have read. Board Policy 005, specifically under board committees, states that committees shall not include a majority of the member of the board and shall consist of no more than 4 board members. When I attended the Education Committee meeting last week, there were only 3 board members present as representatives of this committee. When I saw Luigi DiFrancisco last Thursday, I specifically asked twice who is on the policy committee. And he stated himself and 2 board members. This was confirmed by Bob Gullick at the work session meeting Monday when he stated that Bob Johnston was not present and only Luigi DiFrancisco and himself were present. I believe that every standing committee has only 3 board members present as representatives of those committees and therefore are not only a majority but a monopoly. I am unsure how long this has been going on, but I believe before this board attempts to pass any new policies, this should be corrected. I am willing to work on a committee, and I have experience doing so. This policy also states that the board shall develop guidelines for standing committees. These are the only procedures I could find under Board Policy 6, committee meetings. Number 1, standing committee meetings may be called at any time by a committee chairperson with proper public notice or when requested to do so by 2 members of a committee. Number 2, unless held as an executive session, standing committee meetings shall be open to the public, other board members, and the superintendent. The policy meeting was not made public, but the educating meeting was. Why is that? Why is it that when the Education Committee held a public meeting to take questions and discuss a CRT resolution that no one on that committee wrote, by the way, someone was working on the policy committee the same week, out of the public eye, to create a new policy that would ensure the survival of that resolution in some way? This new policy even mentions CRT specifically. This board does not regularly share when committee meetings are, neither does the district website, but they are supposed to be public. I've been coming to these meetings almost monthly for 3 years, and I have never heard mention of when committee meetings are until last month. A majority of the total membership of the standing committee shall constitute a quorum. That's 3 in the rules. A quorum is a minimum number of people present at any given meetings to make the proceedings of that meeting valid. This is usually to ensure that business and voting can be conducted and no one person, such as a chairman, can do whatever they want because they are the chairman. 4 rule. There's another rule. A majority of the committee or the chairperson may invite board employees, consultants, or other persons who have special knowledge of the area under investigation. 4 rules for standing committees, and this board does not follow any one that I can determine. There are real issues that have not been addressed by this board that have a huge impact on our students and families, and we need to work on those things. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to item number 5, Athletic Committee. Mr. Gulick, Chairman.
I'd like to recommend approval of the following coaches in accordance with Article 19 of the negotiated contract: Matthew McKellen and Sarah Watson.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Oh, I thought you had a question, Tim.
No, sorry, I had an itch.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
I'd like to recommend approval of the following step placement corrections for the 5 coaches as listed.
On behalf of the committee, I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved.
I'd like to recommend approval of student athletic travel as listed according to policy: the girls volleyball and Maplewood High School football.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Number 6, Education Committee. Mr. Brooks, Chairman.
I'd like to make the motion that the PENNCREST School Board reaffirm that the Pennsylvania Department of Education does not list critical race theory in its approved standards. The PENNCREST School District does not teach critical race theory through its curriculum. The PENNCREST School District has approved and put in place multiple policies which protect students from indoctrination, provide equitable access to resources and curriculum, and prohibit discriminatory practices as required by law.
Could you repeat your motion for the secretary, please?
It's in the minutes. I can give you the.
It's the education committee resolution.
Yeah.
The paragraph below.
Yep.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I think I asked this before and I still don't have clarity on it, so I apologize if it's obvious to everyone else. By making this statement, once we leave here this evening, where does this go? It's not a policy. It's just a statement out in the wind as a...
It's just a statement that says we've already addressed it, would be my answer to it. There's 6 parts of the, people asked for us to be proactive. We were proactive. We've got 6 policies already in place that prohibit CRT and the concerns of it being taught here in the district. The state has 6 parts of the school code that address CRT being taught. We're asked to be proactive. This is just reassuring people that we're being proactive. When we voted for our curriculum and for our materials, we did not include CRT in that. That also showed us being proactive, and when this came up, we were prepared for it. The purpose of a resolution like this is to reaffirm that, we've done our job, and that these are the policies in place. There's policy 101, 103, 119, 122, 249, 321. We've put all these policies in place that address people's concerns about CRT, whether it's the academic definition of it or the concerns and fears that we have about CRT. You know, I think as a board, one of the things we need to understand is, you know, all we can do is own our words and actions. We've not implemented it, it's out there. I think for this board, we can't control outside influences, but we were prepared for it. You know, I think that when I hear, you know, we don't know what's being taught in our schools, that's our job. It's what we pay people to do. We need to trust our teachers, trust our administrators, that they're following the policies we already have in place. If there's another policy that's up and it's legal and it says anything other than what's already in the policies in place, I fully support that policy. But we have these policies in place, and this would reassure people so that they're not pulling their kids out of their school because they think we're doing something that we're not. That's the way that I look at this.
I guess I'm struggling with it, and I don't disagree with what's being said here, but, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that my name was mentioned a number of times from the audience this evening, because I think I made statements the other night that even I don't agree with. After thinking about it for a couple days, to make this statement, I don't think we've satisfied the public and that we've done enough. We're saying that we don't teach it, we're saying we don't plan to teach it, but we've had some of our own teachers indicate differently in not so many words. So I'm still unsettled with this statement. I know the policy was a first reading. I'm still unsettled with the whole thing. It bears more conversation. I still agree with my statement that just because we make a policy doesn't mean that it can't change in the future. But I think we have a responsibility to set a more confirmed precedent for our kids.
I think we can do both. We can do this statement,
I have a
that these
question
policies
for
are in
this.
place, and pass another policy if we have one that's good.
I mean, I wouldn't want any policy passed quickly. I mean, I think we've done that enough. Like, I know it needs to be read and reread, and
Right.
words have to be careful, but if there's anything wrong with being a little more
But I have a
consistent.
question for the solicitor, because this is unusual about a board member making a statement. It's not an action. It doesn't sound like that we have to take action on it, because just a statement. It's not a resolution. So what's you suggesting?
Well, I understood it to be a resolution coming from the Education Committee that Mr. Brooks made a motion and Mr. Gulick seconded it. So I think it's a resolution that the board acts upon one way or another.
Okay, so it's called a resolution, but anything else?
But there's still nothing to stop. I mean, this resolution is like, we can say, the first step. If you want to write or make a stellar policy to make sure we cover this better, we can still do that. This would be more to assure everybody and ourselves that this is the first step process. I guess I'm kind of asking opinions. I mean, I guess the thing I want to avoid, I don't want a policy on top of a policy on top of a policy, because that's where mistakes are made, and that's where confusion comes in. If we're going to write a policy on CRT, let's make sure we write an exemplary policy that covers our intentions, and to make sure who's held accountable, and legality reasons we're covering that area. I guess that's my own concern.
Well, I guess we have to proceed to a vote then.
Yeah, to Mr. Brown's question, and I had raised an issue when the policy, the draft policy that's later in the agenda came up about whether it was a duplicate of policy 119. There were also, at the time, it was an initial draft. And I thought there were some inconsistencies between that draft policy and 119. So I suggested that we had that policy in place. There's a second draft of the policy which I think addresses some of the concerns that I had raised.
Okay.
But with that said, we still have policy 119. And to Mr. Brown's point, I think you could probably take those two policies and with some speech crafting, put them together.
Some finesse.
Yeah.
So my question, Chaucey, can we kick that back to committee and work on that with you in our presence?
Yeah, I think the one thing that happened was the policy got drafted after the July meeting, and I hadn't been in the process. I'd like to be part of so we can keep the policies consistent.
I think that would be very responsible for this board, because we've heard 2 nights now the concerns of the public, so my recommendation would be to kick it back to committee and
Well, the question on the floor is this statement. So when do we proceed with this? Because we will get to the policy section.
Voting on this one way or another.
So
That's not
unless
Yes.
Director Brooks wants to withdraw his statement, and then we take a vote.
I heard several people say that they wanted the statement voted on, that nothing came out, so
Yeah, let's just
let's vote on it and then move on.
All right, so let's have a roll call then.
We can have both. So.
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. DeFrancesco?
No.
Mr. Rulick?
yeah.
Mr. Johnston?
No.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Valesky?
No.
Mrs. Crowe?
Yes.
Okay.
6.
Motion carries. Motion carries. 6-3. Carried.
Okay, next. Where we go next?
Next up, I'd like to recommend approval of the attached IBHS agreements with Family Services Northwest PA.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
We have motion and second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
To recommend approval of the interagency cooperative agreement with Bethesda Lutheran Services.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
I'd like to recommend approval of all the linked resources and materials to purchase all the attached resources and materials in accordance with policy 109.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Before we take a motion, what I like to, you got a group of material need to be approved. Some board member recommended that we separate the one item. There's one group of material that I think that I don't agree with, and I had to say no to all of them. So the one I'm talking about is the library books for board approval.
I'm going to second his motion, because he had a motion, he made a motion, so I'm going to second it.
Well, you second after I stopped it. Okay?
No.
I don't think it works that way.
No. I think you have a motion and a second. From the chair, you can't stop it in mid-process. At this point, what you need to do is have somebody make a motion to separate the library books from the rest of the motion. Okay. And then we'll vote on separating.
Do we have a motion to separate the, do we have a second?
Separate what?
To separate the library books from the rest of the package.
Are we
So which
separating
one we vote for?
all the library books?
No, just the Cambridge Springs Elementaries.
Each book individually or just the list?
Each list individually, I think.
Yeah, I understand the request to separate that list.
That
If
first
it's
list on
supposed to
the
be
task
something different, then we need to specify what that is.
The one, my motion was to separate that one item.
That one, so the list of books, not,
Yeah.
okay. So the motion from Mr. Johnson is to separate the list of library books from Cambridge Springs Elementary from the motion.
Yes.
And there's a second?
I haven't heard a second.
Do we have a second for Johnston?
I just.
You did that?
Mr. Brooks just seconded it.
Okay.
Okay, I couldn't be more confused. Could you explain to me what's going on here?
Where we at now?
We're gonna vote on separately. We're gonna vote for the library books for the Cambridge Spring Elementary School, separate from the rest,
Okay.
okay?
Right. So the motion on the floor is a motion to amend the motion to separate the library books out. You have to vote on that motion first. If it prevails that we separate, then we will vote on all the items except the library books. Then we'll have a separate motion on the library books. Okay, that makes sense, Al?
Can I ask a
But
question?
we're only separating the 3 elementary schools?
Just the one.
Just one.
Just the library books for board approval of Cambridge Springs is going to be voted on separate from
Okay, so
everything
the
else.
other 2 schools will be one book, and Cambridge Springs
If
will be
it's
the,
approved.
if this passes. Okay.
If it passes, yes.
Got it.
Okay, I have to ask, and I'm afraid this may be a dumb question, but why? Before I vote on anything, why are we separated? What's the,
That's not my.
I have no premise to, I don't know why I'm voting on it, like, for what you want.
Because, give me a second to get. The library books, it needs to be discussed before the vote. Okay?
What?
It's simple as that.
I mean, what's this premise on? You're saying we need to discuss, what are we discussing? What's the, I mean, I'm glad to vote on it, I will vote, but
Books that are being.
Well,
I
that's,
understand that, but why are we voting for those books separate than the others? What's,
We've had emails from various people in the community that would like the books.
I have never received an email, so I don't know why I'm voting on it. I'm sorry,
Mr.
you're asking me to vote on
Mr.
something
Brown.
I have no information
Okay.
on.
Somebody, I expressed at the last meeting during the work session that I disagree with this list.
Okay.
In order to discuss the why, we have to separate this material from the rest. Because I don't want
He
to,
won't tell you, Tim.
I don't
He
want to
knows, he
vote
won't
no
tell you.
for all of them when I disagree only one,
Yeah.
okay? Simple
And
as that.
you disagree with that one, why?
No, why don't we, so we have a motion, and this is the discussion, right? Okay, any additional discussion on this? No? Okay.
I know why, I can tell them if you don't want to tell them. If you don't want to tell them, I can tell them.
Let's go to the,
Let's just vote.
to amend your motion.
The motion is to amend, to separate the library books for Cambridge Springs Elementary School from the remainder of the motion. That's what you're voting on, to separate.
Roll call.
Mr. Brooks?
No.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Mrs. Davis?
No.
Mr. D. Francesco?
Yes.
Mr. Rulick?
No.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
Mr. Valesky?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the motion to amend has passed by a vote of 5 to 4. So at this point, the motion on the floor is the motion as amended to accept the items that have not been separated.
So this is.
So you're
everything
voting on
but the-
everything except the library books for Cambridge Springs Elementary.
We already have a motion and a second.
You do.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now, the next motion will be, do we have a motion to approve the library books for board for Cambridge Spring Elementary School?
You already have that motion on
We
the
already have a
floor.
motion.
It was simply separated. so that we don't have to make that motion again. All right?
Discussion, questions?
What
books are?
Yeah, what the hell's going on? I have no idea.
Okay.
What you guys are-
I have something to say. I have a list over here, okay? It's a long list with a total price of $4,429.81. This is for Cambridge Springs. Now, this is the short list for Sagertown Elementary School. Very short list. The price came out to be around, about $200.
Okay.
So my question is this: why should we approve $4,000 worth of books when Mr. Newman sent us an email with a long list of books that already exist in this library?
I might be able to help to address that. The Sagertown list that's short, that's for student and teacher development. The library book requests from the other schools will probably be at the September board meeting.
Okay. So this is the only one that they submitted.
The libraries at the other two elementaries haven't completed their request from Follett to receive the quote.
So my question is,
Hold on.
and my question is the cost of all these books justified? Do we have any books at the elementary school that already can be used for the same purpose as these books?
I would have to
Well,
refer to
maybe the principal can
because
respond to that.
You're asking me questions, I can't answer. So,
I'm not sure of the rules of order. Is it okay that I speak? My name is Jennifer Stevens. I'm the principal at Cambridge Springs Elementary School.
yeah.
I would tell you that all of the schools order things at different times. So, but the other books were not. I don't believe. I'm not positive, but I don't believe those were to replenish, replace, and upkeep a library. Obviously, keeping up a library is like keeping up your home. We have to do yearly maintenance. So, for example, last year, when we closed down last March, initially, we went into crisis mode. We were helping parents do whatever they could at home at that time to try to follow along. So I would say that we lost more books in that time period than we normally do for our library. Also, last school year, in order to accommodate additional lunch space, learning spaces, we used our library predominantly as a teaching space to spread students out, as well as a cafeteria to spread students out. So we didn't order books last year based on that. So this year's library refurbishment would be higher than it has been probably in the past. I'm not positive of that. I'd have to go back and look through our budgets, but I would imagine it's a little higher because of those replacement costs. For example, a lot of our third graders love the Magic Tree House, Jack and Annie books, if you've read them to your children. So that's a long series. I believe there's over 50 books in that series. Some students like to read it, 1 to 50 some odd. So we try to make sure that we replace those books that are missing, so that when you get to book 3 and you're an avid reader, which is definitely what we're trying to encourage at Cambridge Springs Elementary School, we want to make sure book 3 is there for you. Or if we know there's like a survival series books that I know some of our 5th and 6th grade, especially our boys, really appreciate and look for, we might buy, because that's a popular, we see that going out a lot in circulation, we might buy additional copies of that. So a lot of those are replacement books. Some of them are newer books that come out. I would believe that's why there's an additional cost this year. But it's just refurbishment. It's just keeping our collection up to date and in good condition for our student readers.
Hi, Erin Fonzo from Maplewood Elementary. Just to kind of put this in perspective for Cambridge Springs, Usually we have a very similar order to replenish our books this time of year. We don't right now, just because our library is going to be one of the last things renovated. So I'm not sure when our bookshelves will be all up and back and running again, so I didn't want to order our books to replenish the library and just have them sitting around. I'd rather get our library back up and running and then place our order then. But we usually have a very similar order to Cambridge Springs Elementary.
So you anticipate a similar size order then? I mean, that's not going to be unusual?
Correct.
It stood out, and I think that's what might have brought it to attention compared to the other two schools. So, just didn't want to be spending money excessively, I guess, if it wasn't called for. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you should have said something ahead of time so he understood. I'm not blaming you or anything. I'm just saying, maybe next year when you go and put your in for Maplewood, just kind of let us know that you're having a large order or something, and we know ahead of time to expect it and not be like caught off guard when $200 for one school and $4,000 for another. Yeah, it's going to kind of raise a flag for somebody.
Just out of clarity, I do not believe you're comparing apples to oranges.
Right.
I believe, you could correct me, but I believe that the Sagertown money that is in there, that's approximately $200, are professional development books. Those are not children's books that are going to be part of their library.
Maybe a poor example.
And we're all consistent. We talk and we're all consistent.
Okay, thank you.
And
But
that's
I
what,
absolutely appreciate your fiscal responsibility as someone who runs a building, so anytime you have a question, please don't hesitate.
Can you speak
Well,
to the
thank you very
access
much
that
for the,
the access that the kids have to the books, being that the librarians have been cut in the past? Or
We have access, not sure exactly what our schedule will be like for this school year, but our librarian is part-time in our building, so we make sure, he's actually at Cambridge, we have the bonus of being so close to one another, so he's able to be flexible with his schedule to meet our needs. So classrooms go down on a schedule, but also we have times usually in the morning or at the end of the day or during the recess that students can come down and access. We did not have that last year. That was not in place last year, just to be clear, because our library was being used for other.
Right, understandable. Okay, thank you very much.
Mrs. Stevens, thank you very much for the information, but it seems to me that from now on, we better get the principal involved in these decisions, because we really didn't have enough information as far as I'm concerned. What was this all about?
The explanation makes it easier to vote for now.
but when you read the titles, it's very explanatory. I mean, I guess that's why I was confused. I
Most of
read
the
it,
books
knew
are
exactly
for-
what was going on.
Yeah.
I didn't have a problem. But all right, let's vote on this.
All right.
Move on.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Next.
Recommend approval of the attached MOU with FCCA.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. What are we going to do next?
Letter F, recommend approval of the attached MOU and transition agreement with Child Development Center.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Did we do E?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just did E.
Okay.
Now we're on.
And we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Any questions?
Yeah, I do, but before I ask the question, I want to make sure I'm not screwing up.
Okay.
Sorry, finish your.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Real quick, I'm going to stop you, Luigi. Monday, we had discussion on, I think it was an education, maybe I'm mistaken, about the mental health. We was going to renew was that education?
Yeah, that was the IBHS.
Okay, we took care of it.
Yeah.
Okay. My apologies. My computer's down and I can't see everything the way I used to, so.
School calendar.
Letter G, like to recommend approval of the attached revised 21-22 school calendar, which makes the graduation date change revised to June 9th, per PDE direction.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Recommend approval of the attached Edgenuity digital libraries for grades 6 through 8 and the elementary licenses for PENNCREST Cyber Academy.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Letter I, recommend approval of the attached purchase of service agreement and business association agreement with Beacon Lights Custer City Private School.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Letter J, recommend approval of the attached PENNCREST Cyber Academy operational documents and the PENNCREST school building level student handbooks.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? If no questions, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Letter K, recommend approval for Maplewood to apply for the classroom-wise technical assistance opportunity.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Letter L, recommend approval of the letter agreement with Crawford County Drug and Alcohol Executive Commission for student assistance programming services for the 21-22 school year.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Letter M, recommend approval to admit a foreign exchange student at Maplewood High School for the 21-22 school year in accordance with policy 239 and to waive the June 30th deadline to apply.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Section 7, Facilities Transportation Committee, Mr. Johnston, Chairman. We received an update at the work session from Plant Transportation. So letter B, I'd like to recommend approval of the attached parent-provided transportation agreement for student A and B.
I move that recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Letter C, I'd like to recommend approval of the 21-22 contracted student transportation drivers as attached.
I make that recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions?
I have a question, Lee.
Yes, ma'am.
I have heard that there is a meeting between the administration and the PM school bus drivers regarding the enforcement of
Can you speak into
orderliness
the mic,
on
please?
the bus. Is that true, and when is this meeting?
There is, I don't have the date in front of me, but there is a transportation training, I believe, next week.
So what are the issues? I'm curious to know.
I don't know that that's the specific agenda, that we have an annual meeting. Mr. Dixon, I couldn't see you through the table here, but.
Question again. I've heard that there is a meeting between the administration and PM bus drivers. Topic of hand is orderliness and enforcement of order on the buses. So I'm wondering are there issues? What are they?
The meeting is scheduled for the 18th of August with PM Bus as well as Wyckoff as the other contractors.
Sure.
It's annually, we review their policies, our policies, any topics that we need to discuss with that, it's handled at that time. So discipline, the routes, any of the correspondence that we have back and forth with the schools, our department, things along that line.
Have they expressed issues?
There's always issues, sure. The big issue is the drivers. I mean, this is a nationwide problem, you know, making sure we're having enough drivers right now. We are very, very close in doing that. I mean, I believe we're going to be fine, but we're also making contingencies if we're not. But right now, we're looking like we are.
Is that something we could get a report out on, like when the meeting's done, or like we could find out how things went?
I would imagine we could do that for you, sure. And update you on how
Just
that.
curious.
I can,
I'm
when
just
we get the
curious.
agenda, after we finalize the agenda, we can put that together for you, or I can have Dr. Glasspool send it out.
I'd be curious to know.
Sure. Okay?
Thank you.
Any additional questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
No objections? Motion approved.
Section 8, Finance Committee, Mr. Brown, Chairman. On Monday at the work session, letter A was discussed. Any further conversation? All right, letter B, I'd like to recommend approval of the attached treasurer's report.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
I have motion and second. Any questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Letter C, I'd like to recommend approval of the attached disbursements.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
I have motion and a second. Any questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Letter D, I'd like to recommend approval of the attached agreement with Northwest IU to provide Title I services to non-public.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Letter E, I'd like to recommend approval of the attached agreement with EduLink Incorporated for Comply software.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Letter F, I'd like to recommend approval of the attached agreement with Family and Community Christian Association to sell or purchase meals for the pre-K classrooms.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Letter G, I'd like to recommend approval of the breakfast, lunch, and a la carte prices for the 21-22 school year.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Section 9, Personnel Committee, Mr. Brooks, Chairman. I'd like to ask to do a consent agenda on this, so we'd like to ask for approval of items A up to and including L on personnel.
On behalf of the committee, so moved.
Second.
Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Section 10, Policy Committee, Mr. DeFrancesco, Chairman.
We already jumped to that.
A, policies are first readings.
Can I ask a question, please? Mr. Johnson and Mr. Joseph were just having a conversation about you sitting in on a meeting with the policy committee to go over policy 105.4, do some tweaking and some maybe rearranging or changing. Should we still have that for first reading if it's going to be changed?
That's up to the preference of the board. Our policies, our policy manual tells us that we have 2 readings of policy. That's so you have 1 reading, people get to make comments, potential changes can be made, and you come back for a second and final reading. There's a couple different ways this can happen. Number 1, you could withhold policy 105.4 from first reading at this point and send it back to committee, which is what Mr. Johnson and I were discussing. You could leave it for first reading and have the committee discuss it before it goes to second reading. You could get to next month's meeting and decide you're not ready on policy 105 and not move it to second reading. So those are all options.
So at this time, it would require a motion to remove it tonight?
Pardon me?
Would it require a motion right now to remove it from the agenda tonight?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to remove that from first reading until it's further looked at.
Second.
Are we removing, oh, I'm sorry.
No. Well,
Are we moving, well, there's two 105.4s on the agenda.
okay, let me have my say. I like the idea, Mr. Brown,
Why is he?
I like your idea to combine whatever policy we already have with the proposed 105.4. Now, I think it'd be a good idea to withdraw it for now, and the next meeting, we can have Mr. Brown to join us and the solicitor. And then we can come up with one policy that will be acceptable to the majority of
Great
us
idea,
at least.
sure.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah, that's cool.
Everybody okay? All right,
I'll be open to the public.
so we have a motion and a second, so
Well,
everybody.
you don't have a motion yet. Mr.
He did.
Bullock asked a question before it got to a motion, I think.
I thought he made a motion.
I made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you.
And Bob seconded.
Yeah.
And somebody seconded, so
Yeah, John.
all in favor to do exactly what we proposed, say aye.
Aye.
So September, I think the September committee meeting, we can all meet together with the solicitor and discuss it. Okay?
Yeah, we might have to adjust the time of the meeting, though, for Mr. Brown's
Yeah,
work
I'm not gonna
work
be there
schedule.
for
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's just
Some
not gonna
people-
happen.
He's not retired yet.
But we can do that, Tim. We'll figure out a time you can be there.
Okay, but all the others are first reading too, right?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Very good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Do we have the school safety committee, do we have anything to report?
We don't vote on first reading? No. Okay. Just making sure.
We had a brief meeting, what month is this? August, July. We had a brief meeting and just discussing where we're at with installing some new security, and things are moving forward with all the buildings, so, I mean, not too much I really want to discuss in public, so.
Hoover County Career Center,
No July meeting, and the August meeting is, I believe, next week.
thank you. Intermediate Union number 5,
There's no July meeting.
all right.
Oh, they get a month off, huh?
Nothing happens at July meetings anyway, just like here, it's super easy.
PSBA unit report.
No report.
Under new business, so we have one new business. I think this is the time to find them to fill the vacancy for the career center.
Yes.
Okay. We have a vacancy to fulfill for the remainder of the term for Mark Giraud. Now, is any volunteers to begin with?
What day is, what day is it?
We meet on,
Always the Wednesday after our two meetings.
So
What
next
time of the
week?
day?
It's 7 o'clock.
it's at 7 o'clock.
It would be next Wednesday at 7 o'clock be the next meeting.
His replacement should be.
Is there anybody that lives closer to Meadville that would like to?
How about our new board member?
Once a month.
Yeah.
It's once a
It's
month.
once a month. That'd be a good exercise
That'd
for
be
a
the
young board member.
That's what I'm thinking.
I'd be okay with it if no
He's
one
wet
else
behind
wants
the
to
ears.
finish
Let's-
first.
And that's just through the end of this term, and we'll figure out next one.
Yeah.
Jeff's like,
Who knows?
I could probably do it.
Sure, that's how it'll work.
Yeah.
Well, do we have any?
So,
I could probably do it.
all right.
Teresa or David?
It don't matter. Rock, paper, scissors.
All right, everybody else,
So the loser gets it.
Well, you guys decide.
everybody, this one's part of vote, you know, just an appointment, right?
I'd have to look at our policy on that. I have other boards that vote on that.
We never voted on it before. It was long
Is it a
here.
presidential appointment?
Right, presidential appointment.
Okay.
Okay, you're appointed, young man.
Oh, David is appointed?
David was appointed to the board. Well, you're there.
They gave it to David. David, you appointed David.
David got it, okay.
Any other new business before the board? Well, if not, we got the board member remarks. Let's start with Mr. Gulick.
Okay. I guess the first thing is, I hope that the Education Committee resolution in some way kind of helps quell some people's fears about CRT. We're going to work on the policy, clean it up and make it airtight and make it hopefully something that we can use to, I suppose, police any teachers that would go rogue and want to do that. I don't know of any that would. I don't know of any that are. I don't know. But there's always a chance that some teacher might teach something they're not supposed to. And I understand that fear, and we're going to work on it. I guess the only other thing is I want to wish the kids good luck getting back to school. Let's see, what is this, August? We won't have another meeting before they go back, so I want to wish them luck and hopefully no mask. I'm not a mask guy, but you know, that's not up to me, but I'm with the people that don't want them, by the way. Guess that's about it. Everybody have a great rest of the summer.
Best of luck to all our fall athletes as they start getting ready for the upcoming fall sports seasons. Great turnout in all three schools from everything that I've heard. Congratulations to some of our students for all the achievements they had during trap season. I don't have a list of all they did. I saw it on Facebook, but I do know Chase Beck, Ian Anderson, Curtis Caldwell, and Brody Beck from Cambridge, Zach Lang, Gabe Jordan from Sagertown, and Garrett Dewey from Maplewood all earned all-state trap team. So that's pretty impressive. Just hoping that going forward we can focus on what we're doing, and what we're asking, all our amazing teachers and staff to, once again, we're getting ready to go into a school year filled with uncertainty and stress, and I'm not sure our board helped with that. We got through COVID better than most school districts did, and I feel like we might have dropped the ball a little bit this summer, but I'm hoping we can get our momentum back and we can move forward, be a little more focused. I got to go pick my son up from football. I love you all.
We love you too. So you out?
I'm out.
You gonna take your computer with you?
You can have it.
Okay.
I'd like to take a moment to thank the folks that came out to express their concerns. It helps keep us on track. And we do listen to you. And we thank you for your input. And we're going to try and do better at what we're supposed to be doing. So thank you for your time and your input and your support. And we're going to move forward, hopefully unified, and make this a better school year. Thank you.
I guess it's my turn.
Yep.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the board for voting me on to fill the last 4 months of Mr. Giroux's seat. I do appreciate that, and I am asking all you kind people to vote for me this fall because I am on the ballot. That would be very much appreciated. And a couple of things that I will say, and I know I said this to the board when I interviewed with them on Monday. I think, and I want to thank the people that are here because I am a parent first. I have kids in this district, and they will be in this district for the next 7 years. They've gone to this district since kindergarten. So I love the school district, but I've been troubled by what I've seen, as many of you have. I will say that one of the things that has drawn me to this board is not only the well-being of my children, but the well-being of our parents in our community and the staff in the school. And one of my biggest concerns is how this board has treated one another and how this board has treated comments to the public. And I will say, everyone is entitled to an opinion. And you are just as much entitled to an opinion as I am. And it is not my right to come and attack you or your right to come and attack me. And I really hope that we come to a place that we can learn to disagree in an agreeable fashion. We don't need to be constantly at each other's throats, but we need to support each other in what we need to do for the best interest of our kids. And that's really where it's at for me. And I don't like the politicizing of things. I know that's where we're at. It isn't what I want to do. But I will tell you this. Conflict and resolution is a normal part of life. And any of you in your youth that may have flown a kite understand that you can only rise going against the wind. So I am putting the challenge out to all of us. We have to have conflict and resolution in order to be successful, but we don't have to hate each other. So please, thank you for coming. Keep coming to these meetings. Keep telling us what your concerns are. As Bob just said, we want to hear. I want to hear. And if you want my email, I'll give it to you. I want to hear what you have to say because I don't know all your concerns. I have my own as a parent and now as a board member. So thank you for staying with us tonight because, you know, it is almost 9 o'clock. So, and good luck to all the kids that are starting school. I'm really hoping the best for them, and I'm excited to get back into routine. Woohoo!
Mrs. Davis?
I think most bases that I was thinking of have been covered. I think right now we just need to focus on the school year. These kids have had a heck of a year last year, and I'm just hoping and praying for some sort of normalcy for them, and looking forward to a successful school year. And I just want to thank the teachers and administration again, because I know, especially with construction and everything going on, I'm sure there's all sorts of added stresses and pressure to get the buildings ready. So thank you for all you do, and just reiterate to everybody that's been coming out to the meetings, tell your friends. It's eye-opening to be in those seats and to see how board works, good or bad, indifferent, and to have the supportive community. It's so much easier to fix a problem before it becomes, what's the word I'm looking for? To have community input before things are voted on and made more concrete. It's much easier to deal with input than complaints. So it's nice to see everybody here and keep coming.
I don't have much to add at all. I think the last three people have covered what I wanted to say, really. But thank you again for coming, taking 2 hours out of your evening to come here is really appreciated by us up here. We like to see that. Thank you for voicing opinions. I'm glad we're going to take some more time to work on policy 105.4. I think that's going to be good. And I'm excited for all of us to work together on that and agree. So thank you for coming up.
I wanted to thank the speakers that showed up tonight. I know it's not easy standing in front of people and talking. I heard somebody say something about they wanted to know what the policy was for 105.4. It can be found on the district's website. You just go up in the tab in the right-hand corner, and there's a tab up there for policies under the school board. So if they want to familiarize themselves with what it is, I believe it's stated there at some point. It's at some point on there. I don't believe we're going to mandate masks in our district. None of us are for it. So I hear a lot of people at the last meeting were concerned about it. 2 years ago, before a year and a half before the schools were shut down, we had a school board meeting at Maplewood. And one art teacher was doing a lot of crafts with robotics, and she was just doing it out of just straws and cardboard and yarn, and getting kids really interested. And I would like to see that get reinstated. I don't know what the plan is this year, but just things like that where the teachers are being innovative with different ways of getting the kids involved. So hopefully we'll see some of that this year.
Okay, well, best for last, I guess, huh? Mine's a little bit lengthier, and I've had lots of thought in the past couple weeks, or past 3 months, really. We've had much discussion in the past few months stemming from bullying to CRT, and are both very important issues and will be addressed in proper mannerism. The problem I'm dealing with at this moment is the way the board has brought CRT to our schools, when in fact it is not curriculum. I am first and foremost against CRT 1619 and other curricula that go against our history and blur one's idea of sacrifices many brave men and women made to make America great. First off, this country was based on the Christian beliefs from people who left a very oppressed country seeking a better life. Was mistakes made? Yep. Is there a better way we could have done things? Yes, there was. But much like early settlers, we're treading on water right now. We're making mistakes. I will own up to some of those mistakes. Comments were made, people were hurt, but the reality was there was no bullying. I read a lot of stuff on Facebook this week. I don't like Facebook. I will come right out and tell you, I hate Facebook. But let me tell you, people on both sides should be ashamed of themselves. Some of the comments I read were hateful on both sides. I will say what Mr. Valesky said, I agree with it, but it could have been handled differently and we could have done a better job. So my apologies to the people it affected. Bullying is not tolerated. I don't care what your sex, I don't care what your race, religion, whatever. If bullying is a problem, we have to address it. We have policies. I've heard excuses, but excuses aren't tolerable. The principals are in charge of the buildings, and if there's a problem, we will address the principals. Some people made a comment, what are we scared of? Well, that's a very simple question. I never had a chance to answer till now. We are scared of parents, as parents and guardians. We will be competing with the education system to teach our children our beliefs and instill our values and morals. As parents and guardians, it's our responsibility to put down our devices in the evening, spend time with our kids, have open, honest, loving conversations, along with continued support. Parents, we have responsibilities in this also. Another comment was concerning cameras in the classroom. For me, that is a big negatory. I do not believe in that. I think there are other ways. As teachers, your responsibility is to teach our children math, science, history, reading, and so on. We were average scorers in the state before COVID, and that should make us all upset. Average is not acceptable. We should be first, but it will take all of us working together. The community, teachers, board members, administration, everybody. We have to learn that it's okay to not get along, but we can be civil and adult about not getting along. As I say, some of the comments I read on Facebook this week is very disturbing. The road we are on is getting rough. We're at a crossroads. The road we are on is getting rough. We turn in one direction, it's smooth and easy sailing, but it's going to be average. If we turn the other way, it's a little hillier, a little bit bumpier, but the view at the top is excellence. I personally love a good view. We will always have differences, but as adults and as a Christian, I must follow the teachings of Christ and apply it every day. Now we start fresh and begin a new chapter and make sure we do better. First off, we write a policy that is exemplary. I am opposed to restrictions but embrace freedoms, but the freedoms come with responsibility. That must be upheld by all. Remember, this is about our kids. If you're not placing them first, you are part of the problem. Second, teachers who teach with passion are great teachers. If you ask teachers to teach off script, the district will fail. Teachers teach with passion, just teach your subject. Please, leave your personal agendas at home. Board members, if we have concerns, let's be more transparent and stop this behind-the-scene nonsense trying for notoriety. This isn't a shining example of excellence. Third, I want honesty from teachers, staff, and administration. If there's a problem, sorry, I lost my place. Let's address it immediately. If we need materials, let's figure out a way to get them. When we accomplish goals, let's celebrate and look forward to our next challenge. And take that challenge and learn, grow, and become better as a district and community. We will always have differences, but how we handle the differences is what can make us great or look like we have in the past couple months. It's okay to agree to disagree. Fourth, I believe that parents and guardians should be in charge of whether a mask is worn or not. The students have had a traumatic last year and a half. Simplify it, we're done. There will be no mask in this school unless it comes from way higher power, and I'm willing to fight. Let's remind you all, James 3:1. Not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. It also applies for leaders. Those of us who lead will be judged more harshly. So, Matthew 18:6, which is a very scary one, but I love this verse. Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him to have great millstone fastened around his neck and be drowned in the depths of sea. So, my eternity is important to me. Trust me, I'm not here to make friends, but we are going to do things right. Mark Giroux said several times, I don't care what other districts do. I care what we do, how we handle ourselves, and he is correct. We should strive for professionalism, excellence, and that's it. But on that note, I want a special thanks to Mark Giroux. He had several years on this board. He's dedicated. He was always putting the kids first, and he was always asking good questions. So, Mark Giroux, enjoy your retirement from the school board. You deserve this time off. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have much to add to Mr. Brown's, but I still have 2 points I'd like to make. First is that we need to control our spending without hurting our students' education. The PENNCREST residents have gone through unexpected hardships due to events beyond our control. Hopefully someday we will learn the reason why. I was really troubled when I noticed that Tribune had 2 pages full of sheriff sale of properties for taxes not paid. I hope that the individual involved will be able to come up with the taxes due. Too bad that the federal government has not come up with a relief for property owners in the same way as they tried to have done for college students and public pensions. Now, the other point that I think it's serious and important. A new policy will be required to have a safe net to prevent political exploitation of our young students. The new policy should contain clear definitions. Without this safe net, anyone could introduce literature and books if it has not happened already, geared to create divisions in families in our district. It is a fallacy to think that because it is not taught at this time in our school curriculum, there might not be someone pushing the theory individually anyway. I'd like to convey all residents of PENNCREST that I, as well as the other board directors, will stay vigilant to safeguard the well-being of our children. And that's all I have to say for now.
Okay, just an announcement. The board met for executive session on August 9th and 12th, 2021 for personnel and legal issues.
It's time for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
And seconds. Meeting adjourned.